Instead of targeting an entire zip code or entire city, you can target people that are going to a very specific location. And
Mhm.
the concept is that the people that are going to that location is give you some insights into their intent to buy. So a great example is if you're a car dealer, right? You may be a car dealership, you come to me, you say, hey, I want to reach people that are in market looking to buy a car. I say, okay, great. Let's geofence other car dealerships that's within your 5 mile zip code or 5 mile area. Why would you do that? Mostly because people that are going to car dealerships are in market looking to buy a car
Mhm.
7 to 8 times out of 10, essentially. So the use cases are endless. I mean, there's so many different applications, and we're literally talking about targeting people in very, very precise areas. I mean, we can literally build a virtual fence around the contours of a building. And when someone walks inside that geofence location, we're able to capture their mobile device ID and begin serving ads to them, both while they're inside the geofence and then for up to 30 days after they leave that geofence.
What's going on, millionaires? You're listening to the Million Dollar Mind Podcast, episode 195 on the future of digital marketing. We have Justin Croxton in the building, who is the
Mhm.
managing partner and CEO of Propellant Media and also a leader in the geofencing marketing industry. Now, I'm not sure about you, millionaires, but for me, geofencing marketing is just totally foreign to my understanding. So I'm super excited to have this conversation with Justin as he gives us some gems and some knowledge on what geofencing is and how it can be a strong tool for, building a brand and building a business and bringing that exposure and awareness to your brand and business as well. And then the last fact is he's an expert in omni-channel media and data targeting. So Justin, I'm gonna pass the mic for you to tell our listeners a little bit more about what these terms mean, like geofencing, omni-channel, and why they're so important, especially in today's age with, building a brand and a business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I certainly appreciate that introduction. I think for me, as I talk to folks about geofencing, the best example that I can give is that in the world of marketing and digital advertising, you're just trying to take your ad dollars and concentrate it to the target audience that you want to have the conversation with, right?
Mhm.
And so, some people do Google ads, some people do Facebook advertising. Geofencing effectively allows you to target people in very precise areas. And so the concept is that instead of targeting an entire zip code or entire city, you can target people that are going to a very specific location. And
Mhm.
the concept is that the people that are going to that location is give you some insights into their intent to buy. So a great example is if you're a car dealer, right? You may be a car dealership, you come to me, you say, hey, I want to reach people that are in market looking to buy a car. I say, okay, great. Let's geofence other car dealerships that's within your 5 mile zip code or 5 mile area. Why would you do that? Mostly because people that are going to car dealerships are in market looking to buy a car
Mhm.
7 to 8 times out of 10, essentially. So the use cases are endless. I mean, there's so many different applications, and we're literally talking about targeting people in very, very precise areas. I mean, we can literally build a virtual fence around the contours of a building. And when someone walks inside that geofence location, we're able to capture their mobile device ID and begin serving ads to them, both while they're inside the geofence and then for up to 30 days after they leave that geofence. And what I typically recommend to folks, just kind of get an experience of it, is open up your mobile phone, go to the Weather Channel app. If you scroll down, those are the kinds of ads that are being delivered to you, essentially. And that's kind of the world of geofencing advertising. You go inside the location, mobile device ID gets captured, assuming your location services and your mobile device is turned on. In that moment, we have the capacity to serve an ads to you. Hopefully, it's relevant, but it's a little bit more of a passive experience, essentially. And that's what, as an agency, we've led with for the last 5, 6+ years since our inception. I mean, we do paid search, paid social, Facebook, Instagram advertising, TikTok, Twitter advertising, those kinds of things as well. But when you're both a Black owned agency, but just an agency in general, you're trying to figure out how can you differentiate yourself. And this is how we differentiated ourselves. And so we lead with this. We do OTT advertising, but that's what we focus on. But we do a lot of the other services as well.
Okay. And when you say like OTT advertising, is that like, so I'm familiar with
It's over the top,
over the top. Gotcha.
over the top. Yeah. So like connected TV, over the top, connected TV advertising, where if you are streaming, if you have a streaming app or if you have Roku, Amazon Fire Stick, what's so great about this space now is like the small business owner can now advertise on those streaming apps and websites.
Hmm.
So you no longer have to be, this behemoth of a company to serve ads to someone across streaming devices, essentially. I mean, you're basically taking advantage of the audience targeting capabilities that are available with over-the-top connected TV advertising nowadays, which is fantastic.
Hmm.
So that's what OTT advertising essentially is.
Got it. Got it. That makes sense. And I appreciate the clarity on that one, Justin. And
Mhm.
I mean, before I continue, did I say your last name right?
Croxton?
Croxton.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You said it right.
All right, perfect,
Yeah,
perfect,
yeah,
perfect.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
welcome Justin to, to the platform. I'm super excited to really dive in on you guys' story and, just learn a little bit more about your experiences, what dove you into this industry altogether.
Yeah.
And to our millionaires that are tuning into it for the first time, welcome back to the Million Dollar Mind Podcast. This is the #1 community for self-mastery and abundance by having million-dollar conversations with really dope people like the one we're about to have with Justin. And you're in the right place if you're here for money making tips and tricks to living a more passionate life. So, tell us about your earlier experiences, Justin. Like, what has molded you into, the entrepreneur, joining us today, and more importantly, jumping into, this industry that you're in right now.
Sure. So a little bit of my background. I'm from Philadelphia, born and raised. Was fortunate enough to go to Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, full ride. So I was definitely fortunate with that. Once I graduated, I always knew I wanted to work in commercial real estate initially. So I got a job with Jones Lang LaSalle. They're a full service commercial real estate firm, offices all around the world. But start working at the office here in Atlanta, Georgia. And what kind of inspired me from that was my dad. He would always drive me to school when in elementary school. My dad was an entrepreneur as well. My mother was an educator, and my dad was an entrepreneur. But he would drive me to school, and I always see these big buildings. I was like, man, I want to be a developer, or I want to work in real estate someday. And so that kind of fueled my passion to kind of want to design my own life, because a lot of people who graduated from college didn't really just get into commercial real estate, let alone, if I'm being straight about it, let alone, African Americans or folks that are of ethnic descent.
Hmm.
In fact, particularly here in the Southeast or in Atlanta for that matter. So I was really fortunate. I got a job, but I kind of knew that I wanted to go back to business school. So I sort of kind of still worked my way up the ranks at Jones Lang LaSalle, but felt like it was time for me to go to business school. So I applied, got accepted to a number of schools, ended up going to NYU Stern School of Business up in New York.
Hmm.
Got my MBA. I went to the full-time program. Before I did that, though, while I was working in commercial real estate, I saw there was an opportunity to do marketing for some of the buildings that I was representing. I was sort of like an agency leasing broker. So I was leasing high-rise and mid-rise office buildings for office, for REITs and folks that own these large buildings.
Hmm.
And that idea of just marketing was just fascinating. The concept of just, not just, helping lease a building just, with just straight blocking and tackling and building relationships with other brokers, but be able to market a building, through email marketing and things of that nature was really fascinating. And so once I got into business school, I knew that was kind of an area that I wanted to go into. And, there were certainly a lot of other options, such as, focusing on, going into finance, because that's a lot of things that my classmates would go into. They'd focus on finance jobs, investment banking, brand manager type of jobs. I didn't really want to do that. I kind of wanted to have my own agency. And so, back in 2012, I actually started my own like Justin Q Croxton brand, like as if I'm like working with some small business owners that are looking for Google ads or search engine optimization for their own companies. And, it was tough getting those first initial clients, but the rest is history. Now I don't formally work on that. Q Commerce is the name of the company.
Hmm.
I now have a larger agency with some other partners effectively, but after that, once I graduated from business school, I continued with the Q Commerce brand, But then after that, that's when I really ended up focusing on, this larger partnership with these other guys that's here in Atlanta, Georgia. And
Hmm.
the rest is history.
Right.
And it's been a fascinating, it's been a great experience thus far.
Wow. I love it. Thanks for sharing that. And I knew it was something, outside of, the very interesting, industry that you're in, and the topics that you guys use to, to connect with us. But I didn't know you were from Philadelphia. I'm from Philadelphia as well. And
There you
so,
go.
yeah, I would love to know, like at what point when you went to school at Morehouse, was that like your first time, living outside of the state of Pennsylvania? And if so, was that like your first time? What was the environment like, and how did that help you with, your independency with, moving and then living, so far away from home?
It was definitely my first time living outside of, living with my parents, basically, or let alone, you know, Philadelphia, effectively.
Hmm.
And look, man, I love Philly, but man, I'm glad.
It is what it is. I'm
Is
sure we had
yeah,
the
I was
same
just
experience.
yeah. I mean, like it's not fun going to high school and then like seeing fights and just stuff going on all the time. It's like I need to be
Hmm.
around that all the time,
Right.
and yeah, just knowing that I could go to Atlanta and be part of the network, particularly within Morehouse, because it's really is like a brotherhood.
Hmm.
You get to forge these relationships with all these other smart brothers who are all it's about camaraderie, but it's all about helping one another out, and you're amongst like really sharp guys,
Hmm.
effectively. And so the chance to fraternize, to go to parties, have fun, all that, but do that, feel like you're doing that as part of a bigger community,
Hmm.
was huge. You don't really see a lot of fights and a lot of crap that happens on campus. So I think the ability to gain some level of independence can stem a lot from the college that you go to,
Hmm.
and being able to go from Philadelphia, where I was living with my brother, who lived with my parents, and that's a great experience, obviously. But then
Hmm.
you have to make that leap and be independent. So having that support system and going to Morehouse was a huge impetus, outside of like what my parents did to get me to the place where I could, in fact, become an independent human being, do
Hmm.
well in school, all those different things.
Right.
All right, millionaires, entrepreneurs, moguls, philanthropists, managers, even, right? I want to encourage you to purchase my book, Lead from the Front, because it is essential if you want to learn how to be an effective leader, not just for others, but for yourself as well. Learning the tools, or the importances, I should say, of accountability, discipline. We have so many resources and tools that are in the book to help you give better feedback, give more genuine feedback, hold yourself to a higher standard and hold others to a higher standard without making them feel like you're the person that tells a lot but doesn't lead by example. And that's what the whole purpose of the book is, to lead from the front. So if you haven't already, go check out my book, Lead from the Front. You can find it on my website at www.kaispeaks.com. It'll be right there at the top.
Right, right. And then, also, being at an HBCU like Morehouse, and like you said, having that camaraderie and brotherhood, I'm sure it even also helped with just like that earlier, that identity piece too, like seeing,
Yeah,
brothers that look like have maybe similar experiences, and then just being able to think and talk on a higher level,
right.
and bring certain things together. I'm sure that played a huge part,
Huge
as
part. Yeah.
well. Would you say so? What would you say some of the most effective methods have worked for you, as far as now having the partners that you have with Propellant? You know, what played a huge part in being able to find those partners, get those partners on board with the vision and the mission that you might have had, for those that are looking into, partnership and not necessarily wanting to start a brand, build a brand up, by themselves. What
Yeah.
would be some advice you would give to that individual?
Yeah. The partnership that I forged was a little bit more by happenstance. There was one guy that brought us all together, and I
Hmm.
wasn't even like, I even tell you like all the other companies. Like I had another, um, million dollar e-commerce brand that I was running
Hmm.
before even starting Propellant Media, effectively. But when I really started to see kind of like what was possible with Propellant, that's when like, you know how it is, like, your time for Propellant goes up and then the bar brat goes down, and the rest is history. Um, But when it came to the partners, is one is like, making certain that you're partnering with folks that share the same value system. Like, these are good people, they're of high integrity. Sometimes you don't always know that. But the best thing that you can do, in any partnership, is like start off with, like, and it sounds simple, but putting down a list of what you expect, like setting your expectations of the partnership and where you want to go, and just having that conversation. It doesn't have to be like a formal document. It can just be, write down what you expect, where you want things to go, what happens if one person's not pulling their weight. Having those conversations on the front end, I wish we did have those conversations a little bit more forcefully, even when, like, it might just be an idea and you don't even know. Like, what if that idea turns into that $100 million idea, and one person has 25% of equity, but they're not, or 80%, or whatever the number is, but you don't feel like that person is really given value commensurate with that equity.
Right.
So just having a simple conversation and having those expectations on a sheet of paper, and then, like, sign the paper, like, whatever it is, like, write it up, but like everyone's on the same page, and everyone's sort of working towards this shared vision in terms of execution, shared responsibility, accountability, things of that nature, versus, okay, let's see how this goes, and nothing's written down. I wish we would have done that sooner, but I'm with a good group of guys anyway, so it's not too concerning. But having just that discussion alone will make a huge difference in the partnerships that you forge with people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even added on to what you said, Justin, it sounds like with those expectations, also getting a list of your non-negotiables as well. Because I
Right.
think in the back of our minds, a lot of people have these non-negotiables, but don't look at them as non-negotiables and don't know how to communicate them up front, to where we end up sacrificing or, bending on those non-negotiables to where it may seem like we're getting the shit end of the stick, in
Right.
a lot of cases as well.
Yeah.
Uh, Switching
So
gears
true.
just a little bit, do you in this age that we're in, this digital age, this information technology age, do you feel like, this is the prime, or we're really just in the beginning of what this, information technology era can really bring for a lot of businesses and entrepreneurs?
I mean, I don't think it's in the prime. I also don't think it's in the beginning. I think
Hmm.
it's kind of like, at
Steady,
this,
steady up.
it's sort of a steady up right now. Because I'm still always fascinated by the number of companies that don't do any digital still, quite honestly.
Hmm.
And a lot of the companies that haven't done even just Google ads, maybe they've done Facebook, or maybe they haven't. And there's a ton of folks that haven't done anything in geofencing for sure. And so as the innovation continues to take shape, across the board, there's more people that just haven't heard about those new innovations, and they want to pull that into their omni-channel, marketing strategies effectively.
Hmm.
And so for me, I think we're just scratching the surface. I don't think it's at the beginning. I don't think it's at the prime. I think it's still like on that incline.
Hmm.
As more companies get smarter about their marketing investments and shifting more and more dollars towards some of those digital channels, because more and more people are consuming content online.
Hmm.
And you have to meet people where they are, and they're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're doing their searches, they're consuming content on YouTube and streaming channels, and you want to get in front of that right audience,
Right.
essentially. But there's so many people that aren't doing that, and so that's why I say it's not at the beginning, but it's also not at the prime,
Right.
if you will.
No, that makes sense. And then, even with people consuming, data and information on their phones is now, like you mentioned, like having smart TVs and, Apple TVs and all these streaming devices and these apps that you can now utilize at home without your phone. Is that what you kind of mean by omni-channel, by having these interfaces or these integrations that are accessible to all devices, all networks, all platforms?
So omni-channel, you can look at, it's like people use the connotations a little differently. So I
Right.
think to your point, it's like it's two different ones. It's like multi-channel and omni-channel. But multi-channel, to your point, looks at a lot of the different devices, like computer, desktop, tablet, streaming devices, big screen, all that. That's one bucket, right?
Hmm.
And then when I think of omni-channel, I think of not just as an advertiser, serving ads on one channel like Google. I'm doing omni-channel, where I'm doing big screen, small screen, I'm doing direct mail, I'm doing, Facebook advertising, Instagram, TikTok, I'm doing omni-channel, all these different digital channels, because that consumer is experiencing content or looking for a problem that they need to have solved across all those different channels. Or they're part of an audience that fits the person that I want to have that conversation with. And so if I put all my eggs in just one basket, I'm increasing the likelihood that I'm not able to, really forge that relationship with that person, if you will, versus if I'm hitting them on multiple places. Now I'm like, wow, this brand is in front of me all the time. What am I going to do? Even when you probably went to our website and you left, I don't know if you did go to our site, but if you did, if you went to propellant.media today, you will get hit with ads on every single channel, from TikTok to Facebook to Google Display Network, our own programmatic. We serve ads through OTT advertising. It just consumes someone to really think of you, assuming that I am hitting the right audience. That's what I think of when I say omni-channel marketing or omni-channel advertising.
Got it. So now I think I'm getting the gist of it, Justin. So if I'm like, so once I'm not sure if this is the right term, but forgive me. Once the algorithm picks up a person as a lead and they go into your bucket, it will now pretty much suck that person into where they're going to get, hit with you guys content, ads, messaging from everywhere that they consume content. So
Correct.
for instance, if I went to, let's say if you guys have a YouTube channel and I went to Propellant Media's YouTube channel, would that also then, now when I go on Facebook, I see an ad on Facebook and Instagram, et cetera, et cetera?
It's definitely potentially you can set something up like that. There's a way to do that, I believe. We also do YouTube retargeting. So even if you just went to our website, we can retarget you if you go to YouTube or if you go to other channels that stream video, essentially. So there's a lot of opportunity to hit people in different ways based on the content that you have and the platforms that those people are going to.
Okay. So what would you say like are the best industries or the best markets or businesses that pair with, the geofencing marketing tactic?
If you're talking about geofencing specifically, I'd say the best ones are car dealerships. I would also say healthcare. Higher education is a really good one as well. We do a lot of work in that space, brick and retail and mortar. So if you have just a physical location, because one thing I didn't mention is we can also, with geofencing, we can measure foot traffic back to a physical location. So we can tell you if someone saw or clicked on your ads and then came back to your actual physical location, essentially, which is nice. And so now, I'm able to provide some level of attribution to the impact that the ads are having on a client's campaign. We also do a lot of work in the political space, political advocacy work as well. And so geofencing has its place there as well. Those are the big ones, I would say. If you have a retail physical location, there's a ton of opportunity with geofencing. Some people ask me about B2B. It's a little touch and go, quite frankly. But if it's part of a bigger channel strategy, such as like Google Ads and Facebook, possibly for sure. But I certainly wouldn't do like geofencing as its own strategy for B2B. Instead, I would shift those dollars to like Google Ads or Facebook, things of that nature. Maybe even like HubSpot, which is a software platform, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Got it. So I think what I was doing, I think I was confusing geofencing, what we were just talking about, of like the omni-channel targeting.
Oh, omni-channel. Oh,
Yeah.
well, if you're talking about omni-channel, like, trying to reach people across multiple channels, definitely B2B. I mean, any and all brands, quite frankly, but specifically B2B technology, someone who's like, I'm trying to generate leads for myself. If you're in the mindset that I need to generate leads and those leads go down a funnel to translate into, a sale or someone that's going to, become a client or a customer of mine, omni-channel is where you need to be at. But I tell people a lot of times you need to still focus on those channels that are lower funnel, meaning, if you look at the marketing funnel, right, you have brand awareness at the top, engagement, and then in market, like a
Right.
customer's in market.
Hmm.
Those things that are in market are typically like site retargeting, Google ads, Facebook advertising. Those things are like lower funnel. Put more of your dollars towards those areas while also putting some dollars towards those middle of funnel tactics, such as geofencing. There's other tactics within that space that can have an impact as well. But I hope that answers the question. Definitely a little more on the B2B side. You're still going to, the omnichannel is absolutely relevant. But that's usually sort of the way that I go about it when I'm, consulting or, we're having conversation with the clients from a digital strategy standpoint.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So it's kind of like so it's kind of like geofencing fits into omni-channel, but not all omni-channel is geofencing.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly.
Okay, now
Like
it makes sense.
omni-channel is like all of these tactics
Right.
across the board, whereas geofencing is like one of the tactics that could fit within an omni-channel marketing plan.
So this is more like geofencing is more like if I have a brick and mortar for like a clothing brand, and once customers come into my storefront, they're automatically hit with like a 15% off, either text or email, or they might see an ad on Facebook that says get 15% off in this store, something like that.
Something like that. Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
that is correct.
Okay, got it. That makes a lot more sense. So what does that process for creating a geofence look like?
Yeah.
Like,
So the process, and I was alluding to it a little earlier, but
mhm.
part of the process is when we build a virtual fence around a physical location and you walk inside of that location, we're capturing your mobile device ID. And at that point, we're able to serve ads to you both while you're inside of the geofence and then for up to 30 days after you've left that geofence location. So it doesn't have to be just when you're at the store. It can be like you've left the store and now, you're at home, you're dilly-dallying, you're on Angry Birds, Where's the Friends, the Weather Channel, Wall Street Journal, Huffington Post, Daily Mail, and you're getting hit with an ad from that same clothing store or from a brand that may be selling a product inside of that clothing store effectively. And so the idea is that you as a consumer, like if you go to Forever 21, right? And let's say that's mostly a woman's, retail location, right? And it's, it's really people that are between the ages of 21 and 25. I'm just, spitballing here. And you say to yourself, I really want to build awareness to those people. That's a great example. Or if you are a real estate developer, we do great with real estate developers. Real estate developer says, hey, I know of 10 other competitor communities that are being built as we speak. And I want to build virtual fences around those locations. When people who go to those locations are most likely looking to buy a home. They're not driving there. Some may drive there to, window shop. But if you're going to a development that's currently under construction, you are someone looking to buy a house. So as the developer client, I would then say, I want to reach those people. And what's even better is you are in market. Like you drove there. Like there's nothing that shows me this. Someone's more in market than you driving to a location. And so that's sort of the context around geofencing. That's the process effectively. And the type of ads that are typically delivered, they can be both video, but they're typically static ads. It's not text messages. We're not sending a text message to someone. That's a little bit more intrusive. Unless someone gave us their, through other advertising, gave us their, their phone number, of course.
Right.
But outside of that, it's more of a passive experience. You'll see the ads on mobile apps and websites such as Angry Birds, Where's the Friends, the Weather Channel, so forth and so on.
Okay. Now, I think you might have said something along these lines, but I just want to reiterate. So, is this also like if I identify that Forever 21 customer is my ideal, is also my ideal client, am I allowed to, build a geofence for myself in that location, or is that only is that specifically reserved for Forever 21?
No, anybody can geofence anybody.
Interesting.
Now to say that more directly, you can't like there are certain laws that prevent you from doing certain forms of advertising. So
Right.
For example, you can't like geofence elementary schools. Why? Because, because of COPA laws, you can't geofence places where there are children under the age of 13, so things of that nature, you can't do that, right? Or if you like, let's say, for example, if you have a certain health ailment, or, something along those lines, I can't like geofence like a neurological center, because I'm taking advantage of like a prognosis that you experience, and then I'm trying to sell you a product that can help you with that prognosis or what you've been diagnosed with. That's something else that can run afoul. But there's a lot of other cases where it's like, hey, I am leveraging your location to tell me that you could be in market for this type of a service or a product, or you fit a certain audience segment, and thus I want to get my message directly in front of you. Those are cases where, obviously there are always going to be certain forms of advertising you can and can't do. But from that perspective, those are some examples where, sort of fair game.
Okay. Now I know that more so recently, especially in the last 6 to 12 months, where you have the increasing cases of sex trafficking and stuff like that. I know that you have women and different channels that do these videos about turning location services off. Does that affect
It
how
does.
effective the geofencing can work?
It definitely does. So like if you have your location services turned off, or if when you go to a mobile app, like all your location services for all your mobile apps are turned off, which is kind of hard to do because like you need your location services for like Google Maps and like different games that you might play. So it does become difficult. But if your location services is turned off, it makes it more challenging for servers to capture your mobile device ID, essentially. And basically what's happening is like your mobile device ID is getting pinpointed at a latitude and longitude coordinate effectively. And then when that goes to the software, when that goes into the database, that's then saying, okay, this person fits our audience, so we want to serve an ad to that person. If your location services is turned off, you can't get captured, essentially.
Okay.
Now, the next question is, well, what if everybody turns their location services off? That's not going to happen. I'd say like since iOS 14 dropped, maybe we've seen about 15 to 20%, impact. But it's really hasn't been so much so where, we've seen a drop in business across the board. So that's just one thing to be kind of cognizant of and aware of.
Makes sense. I mean, and now you even have devices like Apple Watches too, that might connect. Does an Apple Watch connect to does that share the address of the phone, or how does that work?
I can't really speak to the Apple Watch. I mean, most of the work that we focus on has more to do with where the mobile phone is and the mobile
Okay.
device of the phone itself.
Okay, got it. That makes sense. Now, you work a lot with with different brands and different businesses, Justin, especially in that marketing space. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you have seen that businesses are making when creating these different marketing campaigns and these different tactics?
Biggest mistake that I see someone make is having a crappy website with like no content, no personality, nothing of value. So it's two things. And it kind of fits to our story at Propellant Media. So kind of hear me out for a second. When we were founded in 2015, roughly 2016, we were struggling. Like I had my bar brat business and I also had Q-commerce. And so I was still kind of like doing relatively well. But, on the Propellant Media side, we were just kind of like blocking and tackling, trying to, build relationships one person at a time. But we didn't really have a lot of credibility in the market space, for Propellant Media. We were trying to go after, HBCUs, historically Black institutions, colleges, but we didn't have that credibility, even though myself and our partners, had experience in the digital marketing space. And so I think it was like 2017, we were developing our website and I saw the finished product. I was pissed. It just wasn't a good site. If you think of, and this is an important concept for everybody that's listening, you have to look at what your competitive set looks like. And for us at Propellant Media, we're a digital marketing company. We're a digital advertising agency. So our site has to be tight.
It gotta be.
It has to be. There are over 40, 50,000 digital marketers out there. How do you expect to be even considered, in the competitive set when someone's trying to make a decision. So when I saw the site and it was like just a couple pages, it was thin, I was like, no, this isn't what I mean, I'm not saying this isn't what I signed up for, but rather this is not how you scale an organization. You can't scale a company with thin content. You can't scale a company with no personality, with nothing of value to people, when they first come to your site. And so, I had a little bit of developer experience, but not a ton. But I said, all right, I drew the wireframe of what I wanted. I had a relationship up in New York with someone that did websites. I just redid it myself in partnership with her. And this is the important lesson I have for everybody who's listening. The first is make sure your site is tight, relevant to the service or the product that you're selling. You got to look at your competitors and just do something that's better than them, period. That's the first thing. But the second thing is probably more important than just that, is come from the space of how can I bring value to my customers before they buy from me? How can I bring value to my customers before they buy from me? If you always come from that mindset, you're going to increase the propensity in which individuals are going to buy from you. So I'm giving you a great example. You go to Propellant Media site. At first, I was nervous to put myself out there because there were certain cases where we experienced a level of racism and prejudice because there's not a lot of black-owned agencies that are out there. But I just kind of got to the place. I said, screw it, I'm just going to put my face out there. I started doing more speaking engagements, started recording the video, started doing more content, more webinars, started writing more ebooks, and I just put it all on the site. I try to make the user experience still decent. And people would just always say, yo, I just learned so much and gained so much value. Like, they got to know what they're talking about. So why not? I want to rock with them. And there's a lot of people that build these 5-page thin websites that doesn't go really deep. Don't do that. Go deep. Add your video. Put your personality out there. Because people don't do business with corporations. People do business with people. And it's one of the few ways that you can actually make yourself distinct. Make something that's different about your company versus, oh, I just go to the site and yeah, there's some good stuff on it, but I don't see the people. I don't see someone talking to the camera. I don't see the team, just little things like that. So those are two things: site and value. You come from those two places, you're going to give yourself many more chances to succeed from that perspective.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I could, see how as soon as that site was, decent and, the value was there, I'm sure business skyrocketed for you guys. But in that beginning phase, when you did mention you guys were going through a little bit of a, some struggle, what would you say you guys put in place first? Did you try to focus more so on the people aspect or the systems aspect? And when I say people, not, working with uh, the the partners that are already in place, but adding more people to the business or adding those systems?
I would say that, how do I say this? Certainly adding more people was part of what made the difference, from an operational execution perspective. But I feel like it's almost like once we started to, we created a really good site, the business really started to take off. The leads for us, we started generating a ton of leads, for our agency. We then started to naturally, man, holy cow, we got to add more people. It's kind of how it took shape. And we, there's a couple people that I met, that one of which is now a partner within the firm. And he was sort of the impetus to us starting our Charlotte office effectively. And so it was more of like, the business started coming in, we had to really service the business rather than we're going to hire a bunch of people and then just kind of see what happens. And so I tell a lot of folks, don't feel like you got to cash strap yourself. Feel like you got to hire a bunch of people and you don't have business coming in. Try to build something that's a little bit more automated, something that's more inbound. I know there are a lot of industries out there where you do have to still do sort of your one-on-one, blocking and tackling and, new business development. But, it's kind of hard to scale those kinds of companies, particularly if your average customer values are relatively low. And so, starting with the lead gen side of it, the omni-channel marketing, certainly some sales, of course, and then switching over, once the business comes in, if you got to hire people, maybe you start with a couple of contractors that you have some really tight relationships with, you vetted them, they've had them on a couple test projects. And then you can get to that place where, all right, now I'm ready to kind of hire somebody, who's ready to, take over this particular function that's really taken up a lot of my time. And then that's when you start making those intelligence decisions, from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. That makes sense. And, I appreciate you giving more clarity on that too. And I would definitely say having those systems and automation is a big point to stress for, especially new business owners that, are trying to eliminate themselves out of the business sooner than later. So that, because a lot of people nowadays are stepping into business for that time freedom. And time freedom, as we know, comes with automations and systems, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
You said that you were able to build, and this was offline, of course, that you were able to build the agency to 8 figures without any funding or acquisitions. How were
Yeah.
you able to do that, and what was the toughest part about doing so, and when did that change for you?
So we reached 8 figures in 2001. We were founded about 2015, 16. I'd say really 17, because that's when we really started to really do something.
Hmm.
But it was around 2021, and the switch and what really had the impact of that growth, there was a couple of things. Well, it was what I said before around the website, and then also, like, being a marketing company, there's a lot of marketing firms that don't really practice what they preach.
Mm.
I feel like we do. Like, we actually go in and try to build great campaigns for ourselves, and we are in it regularly trying to get as much from a lead gen standpoint for ourselves, our organic SEO, our Facebook, everything we do, even with OTT. We try to be that steward in that testing environment for ourselves, but then ultimately for our, so that we can share those best practices with clients. And so for us, that's what we've been doing. That's kind of what also led to the growth that we've experienced. But you also kind of get to a point where you're like, all right, well, I need to also put myself in a place where I can be more efficient with like how I generate leads, but then how I service those leads, book demo calls with those leads, push that over to my sales team, those kinds of things. There's one software that I bought for our agency. See a lot of software out there, but it's called HubSpot. HubSpot is like a marketing automation software that helps with your marketing automation sales. I think about a lot of the investments that we've made as an agency. It's by far the best. I can't tell you, like, the flow that we currently have is, when a lead comes in, from our site. First of all, you go to the site, we have pop-ups, we have all types of stuff, but any lead that comes in, any lead, whether you called us, texted us, or sent it through a form submission, that leads comes to, we have that lead segmented out into different areas, and you immediately get an email from us within like a minute or two, a couple minutes, let's say like 5 or 10 minutes. And then we have another follow-up email that really gives you sort of our pricing infrastructure, and we give you tons of opportunities to book a demo with our team. I can't tell you how many like notifications I get, book demo, book demo, book demo, book demo, with our team members. And then if you didn't reply to the email, we have a follow-up emails that you get until you reply. And that's when the emails stop. And at one point, if you imagine as an individual, it's very difficult to remember, man, I got to send a follow-up email to this person. Oh, I got to send a follow-up email to this person. Oh, I got to wait a week. Oh, it does all of it for you, all of it. So if you think about from an operational efficiency standpoint, me as a CEO, I don't have time to do all that. So now it's set up where it just runs and it does its thing. And it was a coupling of having that system built, and then just having an incredible team that's able to service our clients has really made the difference with the growth that we've experienced to 8 figures. And I feel like we're just kind of a little still scratching the surface. But that's kind of where things have gone over the last 5+ years.
Yeah, no, that's dope, and congratulations on reaching that 8-figure mark and, seeing beyond that as well in the near future too, Justin. I know that you have a hard stop pretty soon, and I want to, wrap this up just so we can respect your time, Justin. So
Yeah.
my last question, or not necessarily a question, is I definitely want to give you the space, I would say, to, plug yourself in, tell our listeners a little bit more about where they can find you, any special projects or programs that you have, coming up. And, now's the time to, plug yourself in.
Hey man, I appreciate it. I mean, anyone that's out there, you can always go to propellant.media, but I just tell people that our site, I try to have our website be more of a resource and just like a marketing, site, like, a thin veil resume kind of thing. And so I think you'll certainly gain value in terms of the content that's on the site and what we do, who we are as an organization. But the one thing that I want to tell a lot of the entrepreneurs that are out there, this is kind of a little bit more, personal for everyone. There are going to be days where you're going to doubt yourself. Like you're probably going to doubt yourself like often. And what I always tell myself is that like I get like these spouts of anxiety or like, why am I doing this? Am I doing a good job? Am I being a good CEO? Am I going in the right direction? And those are just natural feelings. It's okay. Accept those as sort of those natural feelings. And the one thing that gets me through it is you got to tell yourself that it's going to happen, meaning you're going to get those feelings. It's going to happen, and then they're going to subside, and then you're going to get refocused again. And you're just going to keep pushing through. You're going to keep pushing through effectively. That just having that mindset in of itself makes the difference between you being a multimillionaire, entrepreneur versus someone that's just kind of like, kind of getting by, maybe making a couple hundred racks, which is great money. But we're talking about building a sustainable business model that's bringing real value to people, right? And, that mindset in of itself makes a huge difference. The second thing that I'll tell everybody is you have to be able to develop and implement marketing plans within your companies at some point. You can't just, it's just like if you're trying to build something sustainable, kind of similar, with the podcasting world or content or whatever it is, like you've got to have something that's pulling people in. It can't just be you trying to pull people in. You got to have a system that's pulling people in, churning those people into a customer, and that customer is getting serviced, right? You can't just do that with sales. Like, yeah, you can maybe send out outbound emails and cold emails to folks and all that, but kind of just take a lot of the advice that I gave at the very beginning. Think about your marketing, put some dollars towards that, test it a bit. And you'll get to a place where you're at least getting more knowledge and more insights into what's working and what's not. But like my mama always says, scare money don't make money.
That's true. It don't, and it definitely without money, definitely it's going to be hard to scale too.
Very hard.
So, man, Justin, I appreciate both of those pieces of advice to our millionaires and to our entrepreneurs out there. I'm sure that if people take this episode and apply massive action to a lot of these principles that you shared, people can see some great success in their businesses as well. So just want to say thank you for your time, in your afternoon. And as always, I want to thank our millionaires as well for, joining us week in, week out. And I'm just thankful to have you all a part of the show. Thanks in advance for becoming the change agents that you're bound to become, especially if you apply the principles that you heard today. So with that being said, I'm your guy, Kai Speaks. You just heard it from Justin Croxton on the future of digital marketing. Just remember the key focus, build momentum, and drive results so you can live peacefully.
Appreciate that, Kai.